What is up, my fellow Harley Riders? This is T-Pop here, and as you guys know, I have made multiple tier list videos, and something that also you guys probably know of is there are a couple tier lists that I've reworked on or have made updated versions on because I'm not gonna hold the same opinion on something forever. Something's probably gonna change down the line, and I've made a couple revamped tier lists, but there are some others that I've definitely changed my opinion on that I have not currently made a video on. But for this video, I'm just gonna knock them all out of the way. And if you're asking why I'm knocking the ones that I've changed out all in one video for this one is I don't want to end up making another, like, just three separate re-ranked videos of them because there are also certain ones where there's a lot of placements that I have not changed, and there's only like a couple that I've really altered. So yeah, I don't want to try to make a video that's a bunch of filler. But for this one, we're going to be taking a look at about 3 or 4 tier lists where I've definitely changed my opinion on them. So let's move on to those. Alright, we're gonna do these in chronological order from when the original, or from when the first original one was made to the most recent one. And first, we're gonna start with the South Park Seasons tier list. Now, this was technically the second ever tier list video I've made on this channel, or at least the second one that's still up. But, yeah, I don't really agree with a whole lot of that tier list nowadays. But anyways, here is the revamped version. And for these ones, I'm going to kind of just point out like some of the biggest drops in quality or the biggest improvements or biggest jumps in quality as well. Or just some ones that maybe were originally in a haven't seen tier previously, but I now have an opinion on. And yeah, this one's a bit different than the original version. For one, seasons 1 and 2 have moved down drastically from the original version. Season 1, I had, I think, A tier, but I since moved it down to the bottom tier. Now, I did change up the tiers a bit, but the original, or the first season, was in A tier on the original one. Now it's at the bottom one, because I think it's a decent season, all things considered, but it hasn't aged well in my opinion. Now there are a couple great episodes in the season, but overall I don't think it's aged the greatest. Season 2 has arguably had the biggest drop because I think that was originally an S tier in the original variant of this list, but it's been moved down to the same tier as season 1. Again, I think there are some good episodes, but I think that the humor wasn't as good as in the later ones. Season 16, I think I actually moved up a little bit, because I think that was actually in the bottom tier in the original one, but I've since moved it up to a good tier because I think it's a good season overall. And yeah, those are the only real ones that I would specifically like to point out. Anyways, now on to the next tier list. Alright, so the next tier list we're going to take a look at was the Nittoons tier list, which was one of the more popular tier lists that I've made. There have definitely been some changes since then. I did decide to alter some of the placements a bit. I have since moved Hey Arnold from the love tier. I think that was a tier on both ones, but I've since moved it to top tier because I've gotten way more into Hey Arnold. It's probably my favorite 90s niche show, if you do not count SpongeBob. And I've also moved Avatar up to the top tier because, I mean, it's Avatar, but the second tier, I did kind of change a little bit. Instead of it being like A+, I changed it to had a couple really bad seasons, but would otherwise be top tier. Those two being SpongeBob and Fairly Odd Parents, because, again, I wanted to put those in top tier, but they both have some seasons I really couldn't fucking stand. With SpongeBob, it was seasons 6 through 8, and for Fairly Odd Parents, it was 9 and 10. So yeah, I couldn't quite put those two in the top tier. I've since watched more of Ren and Stimpy, so I gave that a proper placement. I put it in love because I really like most of what I've seen. And I moved, I think the 2012 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles show, I've moved up to love as well. And I don't think there was a whole lot of other changes. I think I did move up Korra and Rugrats a little bit, and maybe move some down, but I'm not 100% sure. But, anyways, that's all I really have to say regarding the Nittoons one. Now on to the next one. And ironically, the next one we were talking about was one of Nickelodeon's competitors, that being Cartoon Network, the Cartoon Network tier list. Yeah, there definitely was some things that I disagreed with about this tier list, and also, I think the original variant that I used wasn't as good, or it wasn't as great of a template as I should have done, because there were a lot of shows that were kind of Cartoon Network classics, I guess you'd say, and I feel like there would be more content. So I scrolled around and found a different variant, which has, I think, most of the same shows that the original variant did, but also has some new ones that I could talk about. But anyways, here is the new version of the tier list. There were quite a few that I moved up, but there also was some that I think I moved down. I think the ones that I've moved up were, I did move up Teen Titans to top tier mainly because I really like Teen Titans. It's one of my favorite Cartoon Network shows as well. I think I had that in like great or good originally, but yeah, I don't know. It's been a bit since I've made the tier list. I think another one that I actually added to this one was Code Lyoko, because Code Lyoko, one, I hadn't seen it back then, and two, it was not on the original version, but as you can tell by its placement, I really liked the show, and I feel like it deserved my personal favorite tier. Now, also, Codename Kisses Door moved up quite a bit, too, because I think that was in, like, the great or good tier, I think, in the original version, but, yeah, Codename K&D is a very solid show, and, yeah, there's also some other ones that were not on the original version of the tier list that I've since added, but I think there were a couple that for some reason were missing here, and I'll explain those. Steven Universe, that's one that I've changed my opinion on quite a bit. Now, I'm just gonna be honest, I do not know why I hated Steven Universe so much back then. I mean, I'm not a fan of it now, but I think I couldn't even give really realistically a good reason why I hated the show, but if I was to rank it now on this tier, for some reason I couldn't find it, but if I were to give it a tier list placement, it would be in the C tier, or the other version of the B tier, whichever one it was called. The one that's basically good, but I personally don't like watching it, because I think that was the biggest reason why Steven Universe was at the number one on the overrated cartoons tier list, the original one. I didn't even think it was really that bad, but for some reason back then I said I hated it, but yeah, I think that's all I really have to say regarding to the updated placements. Now on to the last tier list in this video. And the last tier list that we're going to be talking about in this video is, well, the most recent one that I've made. Well, not the most recent one that I've made, but the most recent one that I made we're going to be talking about in this video. That is the nostalgic cartoons tier list. Yeah, there has been some stuff that I've watched that were originally not on this tier list and have decided to add in the new version, but I've also kind of altered how I made this one. I kind of made it a combo of how I personally feel about the shows and if I like watching them or not, versus how good they actually are. And, yeah, here's how the tier list ended up. Yeah, okay, to kind of clear up what I mean on one of the tiers, I know in the Cartoon Network tier list, I did not include what was called Grim and Evil, but I included on this one. That is because the Cartoon Network tier list that I found actually had Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy as an actual option. And from what I remember, Grim and Evil was actually the first season of the Grim Adventures, which I don't know why on this one they didn't just find the Billy and Mandy and not just Grim and Evil. But yeah, that is in top tier because I love Grim Adventures. But yeah, I've also added shows like Code Lyoko to the tier list, and as you can see, it moved up. And there are actually some shows that are kind of trashed on in the original version of this list that have moved up due to how I actually how good I actually think the shows are. Some of the biggest ones I guess you'd say are Dexter's Lab, Johnny Bravo, and Flapjack. Now, I'm not a huge fan of those shows. I don't really like watching them a whole lot, but if I'm being fair, I think they are genuinely good Cartoon Network shows, so they moved up a couple tiers. And The Simpsons, it's kind of the same thing, but it's kind of like split. I really liked the original seasons of The Simpsons, and they are very good, but I don't like, nor do I think the modern seasons are any good. So, yeah, but for the older seasons, I think they deserve to be moved up a tier. And surprisingly, Doug and Cow and Chicken, which were both originally in the D tier, or like the weak tier, whatever it was called in the original version, I moved them up for a couple reasons. For Doug, as you guys know, I am not a fan of Doug. It's, in my opinion, one of the most overrated cartoons of all time. However, it's mainly the main reason why it was so low on the original tier list was not because I don't think the show is horrible. Let me just get that out of the way. I do not think Doug is a horrible show. But the main reason why I kind of trash it on this channel quite a bit is I just do not like watching the show at all. I just also don't think it's aged very well. But however, I couldn't put it in the bottom tiers. I think it at least deserves a C tier, but here's the way I kind of describe it now. At best, the show is about a B tier, meaning actually good. At worst, it's, well, in the tier that it's in, C, and arguably D tier, but again, I don't absolutely hate the show like some people may think. And for Cow and Chicken, it's kind of the same thing, but again, it's really just one of those cases where I don't think the show's horrible, but I don't know why so many people regard it as a classic, hence why it's in C tier. But yeah, that's all I really have to say regarding my updated tier lists, and that's all I really have to say. See ya.